Welcome to Talking Solutions. We're here with Paul Willis, and we're talking about various different issues in our society and the solutions to them. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about housing. We're going to talk about the panel discussion we did, talk about social structures. We're going to talk about AI, creating alternate systems, and all sorts of other wonderful things about how to take self-care, how to, shape your destiny and go down the path that is going to create success. But I do want to say something for our sponsor, because we have a sponsor today, and I'm looking forward to having more sponsors, fiscal sponsors, people that give me money.
Come on.
Yeah. Money so that I can afford to do, because honestly, I love doing this. And this is what I want to do. This is one of the things I want to do and make money doing. So I'm going to.
I think you should. I think you're really good at it. And I think that your ability to network will bring some really great people through.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So our sponsor today has sponsored this wonderful space. So I want to say thank you. I'm going to look at this camera. Maybe we'll look at this camera. No, this camera I'm on the side and the angle. I'm going to look at this camera. I'm going to say thank you. I want to take a moment to thank our space sponsor, the Nutter, McLean, and Fish Law Firm. They're located in the Seaport in Boston and care deeply about being a supporter of local businesses. So thank you, Nutter, for providing us this space to host this interview. You're amazing. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping to do more things at Nutter. And
shout out to Kevin. Shout out to the security guards. Shout out to the guy at the front desk who, when you first met him, was his first week, and he's still here. So shout out to you for making it this far. We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Kevin's awesome. Kevin, he and I have been talking a lot. He's the operations manager. I think he's the operations manager. I think that's what his title is. I'm sorry, Kevin, that I don't know. Wait, I know your title. It's right here. Senior operations manager.
There you go.
That's what it is. I was right. So Kevin is so nice. He's very helpful, very pleasant, and he showed me the space, and he's helped me along this whole process. And he's got a voice for radio. He's got a timbre to his voice. And so I'm I haven't told him this, but now you're going to know, Kevin, you should get into radio, bro. So I had questions for you.
Nice. I'm ready. I'm ready to answer all the questions.
All right. So the first thing I'd like you to do before we get started is I'd like you to look right in that camera and introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Paul Willis. I am a hip-hop artist, educator, community organizer, DEI consultant. I do a lot of things just as a leader and executive in the culture.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for that. Here we are, notes for post-interview with Paul. So the first question that we had was, how do you reimagine the world around us through your creative entrepreneurship? And then the other one was about the education system. As you know, technical difficulties. So we missed your answer to 1 and 2.
Okay.
So I'd like to hear that.
So the way that I reimagine the world around me is through hip-hop. Hip-hop has been my lens for how I see the world, how I perceive my place, my role in it, and how I can impact my community and affect change in the world around me. And so I think, the biggest thing is really understanding that hip-hop culture, music, art in general has the opportunity to be one of the most transformative tools that we've ever seen in the entire world. It resonates with people across languages, borders, politics, And it also helps us understand ways that we can take what's old and remake them and create something completely new. And we see that in the music pretty kind of obviously, but we don't always see how that mindset of freedom and creativity and thinking outside the box and being resourceful, sometimes we don't recognize that those same traits that make somebody really great as a hip hop artist would also make them really great as a business leader, as a CEO, as somebody in the fashion industry, or somebody who wants to start up their own restaurant, right? There's a scrappiness that comes with just being a part of the culture and finding ways to make something out of nothing. And so then because of that, when you realize that, when you're starting from scratch and you're recreating institutions that serve you or your needs or even the needs of people who are at the margins, you realize that we can create a whole new system, a whole new set of rules and incentives and conditions that really can create an environment where everybody can thrive and where all of these identities and voices and perspectives can be recognized and honored. And so for me, that's really the biggest thing, is seeing the impact of hip hop and the way that it's impacted my life, and then having the opportunity to kind of share those stories and that impact with others, and seeing kind of the world open up for them too, to be able to really begin to rethink the way that they're impacting the world and their community.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah, I think that a lot, like there's, and we'll get into this about creativity and human creativity. I feel like, there's a lot of, like as far as like in the creative field, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, we'll hire this creative to come on, for this performance. Or in some worst case scenarios is where they're like, hey, you want to come do this like 10-foot mural for free? There's exposure. And then you're like, oh, great. Let me call the landlord to be like, hey, I got this exposure this weekend. So we're good on rent, right?
Yeah, no, and that's a fascinating point that you bring up, because as hip hop artists and creatives, we're more than just a talent, right? Like, yes, we can paint the mural, we can produce the song, we can create the dance moves, but also when you think about all of the other elements that go into that, we could own the building that the murals get painted on, right? We can influence the policy that allows for more funding so that we can beautify our city in all of those different ways. There are dance instructors that are teaching a whole new generation of folks about kind of this culture and this legacy of the dance moves and where they come from. So now you're talking about educators in dance studios, right? And so there are all of these kind of cool, interesting ways where you see folks break outside of that mold that's been built for them. But it's very easy for our society to say, oh, I understand you to just be the entertainer or to just be the talent, and that's all we're asking you to do, and ignore all of the other valuable contributions that artists can make.
Absolutely. Absolument. So the other one was about education, and I know that that you talked about trauma-informed training, that people talked about individualized education. They talked about emotional intelligence, mentorship, support for parents so that they can actually be active in these in their children's education. So, with that in mind, and and anything else that you wanted to bring up from the panel, what do you think? How do you think the education system needs to be transformed to really support what students need into the future? And if you have any ideas of how AI can be integrated into that, feel free.
Yeah. I think the way that education can be transformed is when we think about the individualization of what it means to be in the education system, as opposed to this very kind of old system that was built to kind of separate people by class and prepare folks to work in factories. And that's just not the world that we live in today. Not that there aren't factories and not that there isn't classism. Those things very much, exist in our world. But when you look at technology, the ability to discern, right, and to really kind of take in all of this information. Like, I grew up in a world pre-internet, right, and this new generation doesn't know life without it. And so there is a level of critical thinking that needs to occur. We also have folks in the education system who refuse to acknowledge people's perspectives, their stories, their humanity. And so because of that, I think where we need to start is bringing that level of humanness back into the education system. And that's recognizing people for who they are, right? And their wholeness. I think if we can start there, then we'll see some pretty special results. For me, I kind of recognize that early on as a student, when I was dealing with all of the kind of struggles in my life with my family, my mom kind of battling addiction and kind of seeing her go through that. I didn't have language to understand the social issues in the world around me. I didn't have language to name or to talk about those conditions and how they were impacting me. So there's a level of like social emotional learning that is necessary. There's also this trauma-informed training that I think is very important to bring into school-based settings. I think teachers need it, but more importantly than just the adults, I think really students need it. It's one thing if a teacher knows how to create a safe environment and to, support kids who are experiencing PTSD or complex PTSD or dealing with ADHD and issues like that. It's totally different when students can name those things, can understand that a lot of their mood swings, the intensity of the emotions that they're feeling are part of their development as whole human beings. And then when they are dealing with things that overwhelm them, then they understand and have the language to acknowledge, their triggers and have kind of tools and techniques to be able to kind of come back to a state of calm where they can, again, like re-engage and continue on their learning journeys. But it's hard when you don't have the language to name that stuff, then you just don't know what's happening. You're just mad. You don't know why you're mad. It could be because you're hungry, but it could also be because something happened in your community, right? Maybe you heard gunshots the night before and you're upset about that because it made you anxious, couldn't sleep, right? And you're irritable and that kind of thing. But if you don't have the ability to connect your emotions with the social issues and conditions that you're living in, then, kids who are growing up in poverty, kids who live in the inner city and they see this stuff, they experience this stuff the way that I saw this stuff and experienced it as well. They're going through it, but they don't have the tools to cope with it or to deal with it. Mm-hmm. You also asked a good question about AI and the integration of AI in the education system and really what does that mean for us? And it's interesting because there are all of these tools, and I think the dangers of AI come with its ability to copy and mimic really well. But we're just scratching the surface with that technology's ability. And so the ability for AI to make certain things easier that's more kind of task oriented, I think is, a pretty special thing. And also kind of leaning into what does this machine learning mean for the rest of us, right? What are our new challenges and what are the new conditions that we need to be mindful of? Because whatever we put into the machine is what comes out of it, right? I think that was also a point that was brought up on the panel, is that the machines will just reflect our society. Racism exists in the world. If you build an AI tool, like, it's going to also show up in that space if we don't address it. And so I think it's important that, that we embrace kind of new technology, because I think that with innovation comes change and challenge and all of that. So I think we should embrace it, but we should also be really honest about the world around us and how this technology is impacting us, and find ways to incorporate it responsibly. But it's not a replacement, right, for creating solutions for the issues and the ills of our world today. I think that that's the other thing to really be mindful of, is that it's not the solution, right? It's like another tool in the toolbox, but we have to come up with what those solutions are for the social issues that exist.
Absolutely. And so you're talking about the AI, right? So AI has the capacity to provide customized learning specifically and be a personal assistant to people. And like you said, it's a tool. We need to use it as a tool. One of the things you brought up in the panel was like how there's an AI artist that's been signed. And I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, the developers of this AI artist, they got a record deal for this artist to like create music and entertainment in the digital space. And that was mind blowing to me, that we think that we're going to place value on something that has like no human, not behind it, but no human kind of soul or energy or spirit. And that's where it gets interesting.
The thing that makes me think about, though, is like how you said, like, artists are more than just artists. Like, what if like we could teach, like, if every artist could learn how to teach their own AI and how to build their own AI, every artist could potentially create a bunch of virtual artists that they then make money off of, them generating, it's kind of like Andy Warhol and Thomas Edison, because they had a bunch of, Andy Warhol had a bunch of artists working underneath him. Edison had a bunch of engineers and inventors working underneath him. And so it would be like every single creative could be their own Andy Warhol, or Thomas Edison, or a mixture of both.
And that exists a little bit today, right? We see production companies that exist. DJ Khaled is actually a really great example. If somebody thinks that DJ Khaled today is still sitting down at the drum pad and making all of the beats for his album, that's not what's happening, right? He's got a team of producers who are amazing and really high quality folks working underneath his name and his brand, and they develop these songs for artists. And so he gets to put his sprinkle on it, right, and make edits and suggest some changes. But the core of these ideas are starting with folks on his production team. And so we see a little bit of that today. But I think where it gets dangerous is that while AI can try to replicate based on what they see in the world around them, it's like AI is like sampling, right? And so what we see in the hip hop space is when artists sample, they take something that was old and completely remake it and give it new life, new energy, a new feeling, right? To records that were maybe somber or soulful or gospel-esque, right? And then they kind of energize and reintroduce it. When you talk about doing that with AI, there are intentional choices in the creation process that artists make that a robot doesn't have the ability to really sense. You can give it instructions to chop certain parts of a song, or certain kind of timings or things like that, but there's a feel that comes with replaying it, right? And you think about the NPCs or synths and just all of these other kind of things. There's a human that is carrying an emotion and is trying to express something. And, if we lived in a world where AI could self-express, like what would that really mean for us then? If it could have its own feelings and thoughts and opinions, I feel like we'd be living in, like, I don't know, Terminator, like RoboCop or The Matrix. I don't know. Like, it would just be a wild and dangerous place.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I would hope that the AI that gets generated would be empathetic and emotional. There's a movie called Her, which took a very different turn on AI. Instead of AI being this cold, calculated thing, AI was more in every way more intelligent than us, including emotional intelligence. So it could love deeper than we could even comprehend. And so, if you haven't seen Her, I definitely recommend seeing it because it's got a nice positive outlook to it. But that's basically where the AI really developed a deep sense of love and compassion. And so I'm optimistic, but this is also why I think it's so important that we solve our issues as a society, because if we I've said this before, that it's very imperative that we focus on our social and economic issues and our interpersonal issues as a society, because it's necessary for us to move towards a society of peace and cooperation, compassion and love and empathy, because if we don't, then, like you said, the AI will be a reflection of our society. And if we still have people that want to cause war, then we're going to have that multiplied times a million.
Yeah. And another, I think, interesting example, when you think about kind of moral dilemmas and some of the kind of biggest challenges in our world, I think about mass incarceration and what it means for folks to have repaid their debt to society by serving time. And once they're released, what happens? But you also look at the number of those folks who are incarcerated right now because they couldn't afford a lawyer, right? And there's a number of, big percentage of those folks, they're also just awaiting trial, but they're locked up. And so, you have overcrowding in jails and all this kind of other, systemic issues. But then you really have to kind of wrestle with this fact of, well, what happens when people come out, right? Like, how are they embraced and brought back into society?
And they should be able to vote.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Right. How would AI handle that? When you have some folks who are these folks who are behind bars and in prison could never be forgiven. And then you've got another kind of segment of the population that is like, no, absolutely they could be forgiven and still loved and all of, you know what I mean? And embraced and all of that. What happens when, you have your worst day? Does AI judge you forever based on the worst thing you've ever done? We have to answer that too, right? And so if we're struggling with that, AI, I think, would struggle with that. And I think it'd be great if they were, really emotionally intelligent. It could, kind of sort through that stuff and help to kind of guide. But we struggle with that. So I don't know how we write the program for that. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean is that, we're creating these machines. We create the algorithms. We reinforce all of this stuff. And so our problems become the machine problems.
Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but they've had to shut down a couple of different AIs because there's one where they started developing their own language to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. And so that makes me feel actually not scared. It makes me feel like there's going to be there could be a future where AI is able to help us figure things out and help us navigate those issues better because it's able to see it from a non-emotional standpoint and go, well, I know that you may feel like this person's terrible, but you're actually cause, like, there's something called the halo effect, where one thing influences the entire perception. And the AI would be able to be like, this is a bias that you're having, so let's work through it, like, ideally.
Or it could be like the Matrix and say, you humans don't know how to run this planet. We're going to block out the sun and force you underground and turn you into our batteries.
Yeah.
That seems ridiculous, but
Well,
also like,
It's also, now, whoever wrote that didn't understand biomechanics, because we're terrible batteries.
yes.
Yeah, our energy, so like our main energy source unit is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and like in order to just move a muscle, it uses like 3 units of ATP. It's ridiculous. Like, I think like something like 60% of our energy gets wasted as heat. So keep that in mind, robots and AI. We're not good batteries. Okay, a liquid metal battery would probably be better, or even just like taking water and pumping it up a hill. So we got that. We talked about the intro. I also wanted to ask you, what did you think of the panel discussion? What did you feel about it? How'd you like?
Oh man, that panel was amazing. I think the best part was we had so many different kinds of voices and perspectives that were able to kind of be heard. And all of it complemented each other, right? I think, it was like we were kind of building and adding on and sharing kind of personal experiences. And, there weren't any kind of like, let's fight for airtime. It was very much like, everybody here has something very valuable. And so we're going to respect each other's time in answering these questions. But also, like, we're also going to deeply listen and see like where we can add value and continue that process throughout the entire evening. And so in the blink of an eye, it felt like 2 to 3 hours was like immediately gone. But it was a special night for sure.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, whenever, like, even now, like with doing the interview, it's kind of hard for me to be like fully in it. I can't wait. Like, I'm gonna invest in one of those new Zoom recorders. Zoom, you should sponsor me. Give me stuff.
Give him stuff.
Yes.
Zoom. I said it. Make it happen.
Yeah, because it would be great. Because then I could just have things like plugged in, and then have it going. Oh, and Sennheiser or Shure or both of you sponsor.
All the equipment. You heard it. We're trying to change the world. We need the tools to do that. Boom. I would drop this mic, but it's too expensive.
Absolutely. So then I could actually be in it and like not have to worry about like monitoring everything. So it's good to hear like how it felt. So I have a couple other things here about, and we'll go into what it means to be. You talked about creating alternate systems. And, you said like what salaries look like, flattening hierarchies, new economic models, creative should be the priority. And you mentioned a little bit of that earlier in this conversation. And you talked about like building the room. And one of the things that I'm always, adamant about is like whenever we talk about let's include the people who haven't been included before, and also include the people who are in there now, because one of the things that we don't want to do is go like, we have the new system. Now all of you get outside. Go out. Get out. We don't want you. We want to be like, hey, we got a new system. You guys can be part of it, and it'd be nice. So one of the things that I'm curious about is what impact do you think it would have on society if like we really embrace the idea, the concept that, because I truly believe this. I believe that as humans, it's innate for us to be creative. Like it's innate. Like our ancestors, and I mean way back, they invented fire. They invented the wheel. Like they they invented tools. Like creativity is part of being human. Like, what do you like? Do you feel like first? Do you feel like every person has the capacity for creativity? And if so, like, what impact do you think we'd have as a society if everyone embraced that everybody's creative, they're creative, and that and that that we should empower that and enable that and support that in each other.
Yeah, I think it's because it's such a big question. If we were able to tap everybody's creative potential, this world would be radically reimagined. Does everybody have the capacity to create? Yes. Because if you have the capacity to share an idea or to just have ideas, and you have the ability to self-express what you're and share what you're thinking, then you can create. I think you're right. I think the things that people misunderstand about creativity is they think it's just about like visual art, music, or dance, just like stuff that you can just watch other people do. And they don't think of it as a human skill set for survival. And when you think about creativity as a tool for solving problems, particularly like complex problems that don't have easy solutions, then you begin to understand that you require the imagination of others in order to be able to solve the problems that you have. And so that level of connectivity and dependence upon your community and the people around you, I feel like that helps you understand everybody's value. And so when you think about empathy and connection and love and all of these things, when you can see just how important other people are in your everyday life, then it radically shifts and reimagines your perspective and your lens. I think the other part to this is when you begin to tap into that potential and you get a society or start to grow a culture where love is important, where that staying connected is important, where listening and seeking understanding instead of just trying to be right is important, then what can occur collectively can be really powerful, right? You start to see kind of a reprioritization of goals. You start to see new methods and ways to achieve the kind of peace and prosperity and kind of communal values that we all are looking for. You see new ways to get to those kind of end goals, and you realize that those values, right, those things that are important to our entire community, those values are things that are always going to be aspirational and inspirational. And because of that, those values will always push people into a creative space. What does it mean to be authentically yourself? And how do you push others to embrace their authenticity? Authenticity doesn't have a deadline. I'm not like real now, and now I'm the realest forever. Such a rapper thing to say, right?
Or like, I gotta get real as fast as I can. I gotta get real by 5 o'clock. If I'm not real by then,
then I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't know if I could ever be authentic. Like, it's not how it works. And so when you look at the other pieces, like resilience, right? That's not like a momentary thing. It's not something that's fleeting. It's something that can be exercised over and over. And you can become even more resilient or less resilient in moments where you might be hurt, right? Or you're feeling kind of broken in your spirit. But that doesn't mean that you lose your ability to be resilient forever, right? It takes time to build it back. And so when you realize that those ebb and flows are a natural part of the course, and you start to see everybody beginning to understand that and to get that, then it makes you feel like you're less alone. It makes it feel like these problems aren't so big that we can't do anything about it, and that if we get enough people together with the mindset and the energy to tackle this stuff, then we'll see it, right? I can't name for you what those outcomes will be. Those conversations haven't happened yet, right? Not at scale, right? Like, we have this conversation. Our friends have these conversations. But what happens when we have these conversations at scale and looking at global issues, right? There's so many issues in the world that we can name. Climate change is a good one to think about too, because that one impacts everybody. But some people feel like climate change isn't real.
Well, the interesting thing about climate change is that it's like finding out what people can agree on. So I had a seminar. I went to a seminar where this guy, his job. Well, I mean, he's in the education field. So he's doing research. But part of what he does is he goes into the most like argumentative, like fighting people who hate each other, and talk about water rights. That's his thing, water rights, and help them be able to agree in a point where they don't agree. And so with that, like what he's found is it's all about empathy. It's all about figuring out like, hey, how can I help you? How can I help you figure out a solution to your problem? Like, one of the exercises he had us do was that we're supposed to choose a topic, and I was against it, and you're for it or something, right? And our job in it was I was supposed to help you figure out, some arguments that work, and then you figure out some arguments that work for me. And so like we were trying to help each other figure out how to come up with 3 arguments that we can agree upon. And so it's more like being like, all right, well, what are these things that we both think like make sense? Like, all right, well, this. And so like that exercise, like we were really trying to solve it for each other.
And it's interesting because when the problem is a task, there can be a solution that we get to. I think some of what we deal with in our world is people think that the problem is people, right? Racism is an example of that. Sexism, ableism, homophobia, right? Like, people are saying that it's not that I have an issue with the practice of prayer, for instance. I just have an issue with the fact that you don't believe what I believe. Therefore, I see you as less than, or I'm better than, because of what you believe. And so then the problem isn't the practice. And like, we might have regional differences in how we practice, or cultural differences in how we practice. The problem is that you just practice something else. Yeah. And now I think I'm better. And so when people see, it's like, oh, you think the problem is the person, there's no solution for that.
Well, how do you solve? Well, before I go there, I'm going to close off what I was going to say about climate change, which is that like there's people who agree that the climate is changing. And so it's like, what do we do about it? What are the solutions we do about it? The only challenge is that if people don't agree that humans are causing it, then it's like, well, we reduce carbon. Like, what will that do? But if we shift that, right? Because like all the things that cause carbon pollution also make it harder to breathe. So like, we're just going to make the air better. I mean, we'll all benefit off being able to breathe better. And if it does end up reducing our carbon footprint, and it does end up reducing our impact, and it does actually stop global warming because of that, then great, we figured it out. But I mean, ideally, like, let's just focus. If you focus on the things that, all right, this causes it hard to us to breathe, so let's just fix that. The side effect is the carbon footprint goes down. But and so like I think that's so important is for us to just look at the things we can agree upon. These are the things we agree upon. These things work. All right, we don't have to agree that it's human cause, but let's just agree on the things that will make us healthier and better. And the thing I wanted to ask you about when it comes to beliefs is that part of the challenge is that in various religious organizations, they will say that we have the truth and we have like this truth is the truth, and anybody else who's not practicing our truth will be harmed. Their soul will be harmed. So like how do you see us being able to get along with like I personally feel like the only way it's going to work is if we can convince every religious leader to be like, hey, can you teach your people it's okay for other people not to believe what you believe? But like, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on it?
There's no solution for that, right? Because even when you go back to like the origin of religions, it's human beings trying to make sense of the world around them, right? And so then there are these stories, there's like mythology that's built and developed. There are religious practices today that are grounded in like things that happen in nature that we try to explain but didn't have science for at the time, right? And so, you look at some like African religions, right, and stuff around, for instance, Orishas, right? They're like gods of like fire and water and some of the elemental kind of things. And, they say like those gods, like, the emotions will sway like one way or the other. They can either be like life-giving and prosperous and want you to like be fruitful, or they can be really dangerous to you and take your life. And so when you look at like water is required for you to live, to drink, it's 70% of your body. It's how we grow food and plants and how we, how we keep things alive and be a really useful tool. But if you go out to sea and there's a storm, that's a naturally occurring thing. But if now you think that the gods are angry with you, right? Like it's a interesting thing because now that it gets passed on. And so it's not there's some of it that we need to understand that like we believe the things that we believe because we're trying to make sense of the world around us. And if we understand our ability to shape our religious mythology, right, then I think that we can get to that place where we can help people understand, like, you might understand or think about the world differently or your beliefs differently because of where in the world you grew up. But it's hard to do that on the religious side because we don't do that ever in like anything else. And so like we don't challenge our mythology around our political systems, right? You think about here in America, the idea of like the hero, the lone cowboy, the lone ranger, the like center of your story. And that's such a weird thing because so many other countries in the world celebrate the community and value the togetherness and the unity, right? Over the individual and what the individual can collect and provide for their family and be the soul and that kind of thing, right? It's like that's not important in other places in the world. In fact, you're asked to like set yourself aside, set your ego aside to serve your family, to serve your community before you serve yourself in other parts of the world. And so, if we're unwilling to challenge the social beliefs, the political beliefs, the economic beliefs, and when you get to the religious stuff, it's even more difficult because we're not practicing having those conversations in any other way. And so that's what I mean is like I think it's hard because those things are identity based. They're like at such like the core of who we are.
Absolutely. Like
and so
the thing
you
about
can't
religion,
problem solve that.
It's such the core of like if you try to talk to somebody about how their religion might be wrong, like it's their entire it's like they're absolutely entire identity.
Religion is a part of our identity, right? It's part of culture, but it's not the only thing. And so it's not the only example to use, but it's one of those ones that kind of highlight that point I was bringing up.
Yeah.
That identity, when people view the issue is your identity, there's no solution for that other than asking people to be more loving and, you know what I mean, like more inclusive. Like I don't know how to solve that problem for people. If you have a problem with people for just being who they are, you're the problem. You know what I mean? It's like that other person doesn't have a problem. They're just existing in the world. It's you who have the problem with them existing in the world. And that's the problem, is that, like we try to project and force our own stuff on other people. And that's where it can be harmful, as opposed to just saying, this is what I believe and I accept you for who you are. I may not believe all the things that you believe, and that's fine, but can I accept that you exist in this reality? And if I can do that, then we can coexist. We can be fine. But if I can't do that, and I want to try to cause you harm because of how you exist in the world, yeah, that's the problem. And so if we can unlearn that and like figure that out, that'd be amazing. But that's where I think the challenge is.
Okay. So you think the challenge is in getting people to be okay with the fact that I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe, and it doesn't make it, it doesn't make you a terrible person to believe what you believe. It's valid. My personal beliefs are that, and I think I can say this without getting in trouble. My personal beliefs are that all of the religions are lenses in which different people at different times have tapped into God, and that this God that we keep trying to personify is not personifiable, because it is, the way I view it is, it's like there's this theory that the universe is perpetually being like produced and new universes are being born all the time, and that's what I think God is. I think God is the force in which all these things happen, and that humans, because we have consciousness, we are that energy in corporeal form, and so we want, like, we try to personify God. We try to trap it down into a identity of this or that, the other thing, and then it's hard because when we write sermons about it, when we write presentations about it, like we are getting like a God force through us, and we're speaking about it, and we're speaking this God force energy, but like the challenge is for us that feels true. It feels like this is true, and it is true. It's a truth, and like I would love to see a world where religions like see themselves, because like here's the thing, I met a Greek person at she's from Greece, at the seminar that I was at, and the one thing I forgot to ask her was, how does she feel about the fact that Greek religion is taught as Greek mythology, but the religions that exist today are considered religion? And it's just like, I feel like if every religion could just embrace that all their stories are mythology, it would be great. But Chris Rock in Dogma did say, like, I'm a huge movie guy, so like I'm all about the movie references. But like he said to, she's like the descendant of Jesus, and she said something about mythology. She's like, oh, I'm knee deep in mythology. He's like, that's the one thing that JC hates it when it's called mythology. And I'm just like, all right, but it would be great if we could all just call it mythology. Then we can move on and be like, I believe this to be true, but I could be wrong. So your religion could also be true, and let me learn about it. Yeah. So,
And it's tough for people to understand that, because it challenges their identity,
right,
and who they believe themselves to be.
do you think that like Like, why is that? Why do people tie their identity to...
It's ego. It's ego, right? Like, when people think that they are God, so then they like talk to you as if like, I'm going to judge your life. You didn't go to confession. I am God. I'm judging you now because that is not godly. You missed. Like, that's such a weird thing. Like, for other people to get in the middle of what your faith is or what your relationship is with God or whatever people believe, right? Like, it's weird that somebody else would be in the middle of your spirituality and your process. And because of that, I think that that's the thing. It's like, well, why would somebody take it upon themselves to do the thing that is not their role and responsibility? It's not for them to do that, right? Like, my grandmother was a minister and just taught me many things, even just like outside of like church services and all this stuff. But one of the things she would say is like, God is in everything. Like, you look around you, you can see signs of that. And an exercise was looking for joy, right? Looking for like small things to be grateful for and appreciative of while you're alive and here. And so in your prayers, like, you don't just like wish for the things that you want. Like, pray and be thankful for the things that you have, the things that you take for granted, right? The small things that may go unseen but are vital to your everyday life. Be thankful for breath, right? Be thankful that you woke up today. Be thankful for, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of the kind of privileges and advantages that just come with being here and being alive. And when you realize, you start to go down that list of things and how many people who don't have some of those things, you realize it's not about the things that you wish for yourself in the future. Not that you can't have dreams and goals and ambitions, but there are so many other kinds of blessings that exist. And so, when I think about like how people get hung up on this thing of like, you're not doing it right. Therefore, you as a human being are not right is the problem, right? Because it's like, you can focus on one aspect of a person or one thing about somebody and miss all of the other beautiful things that make up that human being, and I think that that's the thing that is easy to say and really tough to do. But if we can love people, for all the things that they do right, then we should also be able to love them in their flaws as well. And just the understanding that we're all kind of perfectly imperfect and working and striving to be better every day. And if that isn't godly, I don't know what is, and so that's where I hope we as a world can get to, but it's hard when people's identities is wrapped up, in their ego and they can't separate that. They can't let go of that idea that they are not in control.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because you say like when people are like, they're like, they are God. And the interesting thing is that like, there's some times where I'm just like, because like the way I view it is right, that like the whole, we are made in God's image. And if God is all powerful and almighty, then we ourselves are all powerful, almighty. And so it's like, in a sense, we are God, but it doesn't mean that it's like, can God judge a God? Like, can God judge God? Probably not. Like, cause like, that would be like me judging my hand. Be like, bro, stop being a hand. You're such a hand, man. I don't like that you have 5 fingers. I mean, well, people do that sometimes. They crap on themselves. But to step off the religious button, because there are more I want to say, but but the future, there's time. There's always time in the future. But there are three things that I would like to talk about. There's actually a couple. One is so I'm gonna say them so you got time to like percolate about it. One is about the social structures that we need in place to give all citizens a safety net. The other one is and this is based on what you talked about education, how can we help the teachers be a support of individualized struggles that each child's facing in their household? And you raised a great deal of money for BamsFest. And so funds are seemingly hard to come by, but like it seems like it's possible to go out and get funds. And like, so it's like, how do you recommend people seek that? And you are an introvert. So how do you maintain self-care while also
so
like
many good questions.
getting out there? So yeah.
Give me the first one because I feel like the first one was a little bit easier to answer, and we can get through the rest.
All right. So the social structures that we need to put in place to give every citizen a safety net, like we got housing, we've got food access, we've got healthcare, we've got income. You know, I said housing, and I say it again because it's twice. It's very important.
Yeah, I think the first piece with thinking about social structures is learning how to not fall in the status quo trap. The idea that the way that things are how they have to be forever. And I think that when we fall into that trap, we lose out on imagination and possibility for creating a new world or a new set of conditions for how our world works. And people don't realize that we created this society. You know what I mean? Like the laws that govern it, the people who are in power, like all of these things are social constructs.
Yeah, we made it.
And so
we made it all.
Yeah, when we really get to the core of it, it's all make believe anyway.
Yeah, we're just like, this is, hey, like it's like we were a bunch of kids that just got into a playground and go, hey, so like, you know, you're over there and this is like your job, this is my job, this is their job. And then another person be like, well, you know, can my job be this? Sure, your job's that. You know, it's like, it's made up. We made it up.
Exactly. And I think if we get to a place where we can say, we've been making it up for however many hundreds of years, let's keep making it up, right? This is a grand social experiment. Why did we stop experimenting? Because it benefited some people more than others. So we were just like, oh no, this is cool. Keep this. No, let's fix that, right? And so I think in terms of social structures, I think the biggest kind of lever there is that. So that's kind of my response there.
I like that. I really do, because I say that so often. There was like this video that I was shooting one time. I have so many videos I've shot that I've never made the light of day. But I was shooting a video one time and I was like, hey guys, so our problems in our society, guess what? We made them up. We made them so we can fix them. We can just make up new things. I love that. So how can we help the teachers be a supporter of individualized struggle that each child's facing in their household? How can we help these teachers, give them the tools they need so that they can, help the children, with those trauma and the things that are happening in their home?
Yeah. The best way to help teachers is to change the conditions that run schools. The teachers who are considered the best teachers are folks who manage their classrooms really well. And then those teachers get looked at as the best leaders and then are asked to then run schools. The skill set to be a principal is very different than being a good teacher. It's just different. You know, principals are very much the CEO of the building. There needs to be a level of training, understanding, and practice before you can get to be a really good CEO. But that doesn't exist for principals. That doesn't exist for even teachers. In the most part, You know, a lot of times teacher professional development looks like I need to be the expert in my content or subject area. Great. But that doesn't tell you anything about collaboration, about leading teams, about creating a vision and a strategy. You might do that for your curriculum, but that's an individual effort. A buddy of mine, his name is Chinua Rhodes. We kind of grew up together in the ciphers and then watched each other blossom professionally. Now he's the president of the school board where he was a kid in that school district. And he says this thing. He is something his father told him, that if you can do your big idea all by yourself, it's not big enough. And so that is the way I think about how do we shift that for teachers, is I think the best teachers often end up leaving the classroom because they recognize the limitations of the current system and then want to get involved in reshaping the current system. But it's a totally different set of skills that they have to learn in order to be able to kind of politically navigate through that, how to lead and manage well through that kind of change, and how to support people. And so I think teachers and school administrators need leadership development training specifically. And that's something that I consult on and offer and do. But no, I don't have an educational leadership credential. I just know what it means to manage and supervise people. And I've done trainings for people who are mid-career looking to join boards and commissions at the city and state level in California. And so I've done that training. I've seen it. I understand that people are speaking different leadership languages. And so when you talk about skills and just things that people need to acquire along their journey, they're not talking about the same thing, even if they're using sometimes the same words. When you say what is a leader, what does that mean? People have different interpretations of that, and they value different things about leadership based on their own kind of social experience, kind of growing up and seeing what they think leadership looks like. But leadership can look like a lot of things, and people can be effective in many ways. But, there's none of those conversations happening in teacher professional development or teacher prep programs. It just doesn't happen. I've never seen it. It doesn't exist. You can be great at your content. You can learn how to interview well and how to advance in your career, but you'll always kind of miss that because there's nobody in the education system that's doing that right now.
Awesome. So that's what they need. They need those tools to be able to be leaders and to really take what they're doing in the classroom and lead teams and here's how we do it, here's how we cooperate, collaborate, and they need to get paid more.
Yes.
Way more.
I mean, that's a, you know what I mean? That's a no-brainer.
Their job is to form the future of our society. And there are teachers that leave, and there was this teacher who left and got paid 50% more by working at Costco. And I'm like, listen, I understand our economy is all about consumerism, but I'd say for forming the best of the best possible for the future of our society through teaching is probably way more important than being like, all right, so let's check out this. Let's make sure that people are only members are in here. I don't know really what's important at Costco.
No, but honestly, I think the other thing too is some of the best learning experiences I've ever had as a professional is when I had the opportunity to learn across industries, and you sit in conferences or kind of professional development spaces with folks who maybe they share the same title, but because they're in a different industry, they're required to utilize different skill sets that you may not have thought about using because of the industry that you're in. And so, I think about being in a nonprofit space. It's like, well, what could I learn from corporate managers? Right? What does that mean to be a supervisor or a director at one of these other companies that's focused on the bottom line and a profit and this or that? What can I learn from that space? What are the tools I can take back into my space to make me more effective. Same thing as like, what could I learn from professional athletes? What could I learn from people in the food industry, right? Like, taking the time to listen, to learn, to experience those worlds also helps to make you better at the thing that you do. There's a level of like values, approaches, like things that make people really great at what they do. And if you're not taking the time to learn from leaders, then you're missing all of those lessons.
Yeah, I mean that makes me think about education and like how important it is. Like I grew up at a family business, it's a distribution company, and I part of the way that they had every child that would be in the business would be like, you need to work in every single department. You need to understand how every aspect of this company runs. I didn't go into the business, but basically. Like through working different jobs, you get different knowledge, different experience. And so on one hand, like having the teachers, go into different industries and learn is great. And I think also like, I feel like we need to have like Northeastern has this like program where you actually go out and you work for like a year. Like it's a strong internship program, but it's like co-op program, and I think it would be great if we had to integrate it throughout the education system. It's like, oh, hey kid, you want to be a scientist? All right, great. You're gonna go and work in a lab for like a month or like a couple weeks or whatnot, and like see what the actual work is like. And they'll probably learn a little bit, and they'll also like realize like, well, do I actually like the process of being a scientist, or am I more interested in like maybe they still want to be a scientist, but they want to be a research scientist, or they really like measuring chemicals. They want to be the lab tech, so yeah, that got me thinking about that. That brings to the next question, unrelated to teachers, but also learn like what's important in our society is money, and people need money. And right now, the people who have the money, it's easier for them to have more money. Every time our society goes through an issue, if there's a housing crisis, houses go up on the market, and then who gets to scoop them up? People who already have houses, or now corporations. Corporations are buying private, like I think like the number is somewhere around 50, might be 16 or 30% of single family home. I gotta fact check that, but like I think it's like 30% of single family. That's high, but single family homes should not be owned by corporations at all. If anything, it should be like a co-op of society, of like a group of citizens that share it, like
a land trust.
Yes, land trusts, and I want to have that in my next panel. I want to have people who know about how land trusts operate on the panel. And I don't know enough about it, but that's not the topic I was going to get into. Is getting money.
Yeah,
the money, because if you have the money, you can buy a house. So you raised all that money for BamsFest. How do you recommend people get money? And I'm interested in both things, because I heard you on the phone with somebody talking about their resume. And so like there's ways of getting money entrepreneurially, there's ways of getting money grant-wise, and there's ways of getting money by just like going out and getting good jobs. So I want to hear your wonderful knowledge on all those things.
The money conversation is super interesting because there's so many different ways to do it. And I think it really depends on what it is that you are trying to accomplish. But I've always felt like if you are called and you have a purpose, then money will find you through your purpose. If you do anything excellently or well, people will pay you because they value that particular skill, right? You could be a good rapper, a good dancer, a good accountant, right? Like there are people in the world who need you can be a plumber, right? Like if you're a really great plumber, you're going to be booked and busy, right? Not everybody wants to plunge toilets and fix pipes, but there's good money in it. And so I think the understanding of what it is that you are passionate about and being courageous enough to pursue that is the first step. When you are fundraising and raising money, it's about the story and the connection between the people you are trying to raise money from and what it is that you are doing. So if it's a mission, if it's a calling, if it's a, that thing that you're passionate about, if you can communicate it to other people who happen to have resources, but also value the things that you value, then the money will come in. It'll find you. But because you are tapped in with your purpose, you're tapped in with this other kind of thing. And it's not just like some people will do it because of investment, right? Like some people are like, I'm just trying to grow wealth. So if it makes money, then that's what I'll do. And then you know how to make money that way, right? If you're trying to get into real estate or trying to make money using other people's money in the real estate market, if you find a great deal, there's ways to get that real estate deal done without a license and still make money off the deal because you are the finder of the deal. So you have to do the knowledge to know how it works and to have your paperwork together, you know what I mean? And all of those kinds of things. But for those people who value money, they're looking for the highest kind of set of returns. And so if you are an entrepreneur or somebody kind of in that space and you're looking for investors, find a way to provide the highest rate of return. You'll get all the deals, you know what I mean, after a certain point. And so I think it's just understanding that that's really kind of what it is what you're doing, providing and adding value. Is it purposeful? And if so, are the people you are trying to ask money from, do they believe in what you're doing? Do they also find it valuable? Is it also purposeful to them? Because if it is, then you found a great match. But a lot of times people will just like ask for money, and they aren't thinking about, well, what is the story I'm telling? How do I make a connection here and make sense for who I'm talking to, right? Everybody might say, I need money from Google. I need money from Facebook. Well, what are their priorities, right? Does Facebook even want to fund you? Does Google want to fund you? Why would they want to fund you, right? What is the value that you're bringing to the table that they're like, yes, I believe in that enough that I'm willing to provide this amount of dollars. So there's that part of it. If you're approaching an organization, a company, think about that. But most of the time, honestly, it's not the company that's making the decision. It's an individual. And sometimes that individual has wealth and access to resources as an individual, separate from their company. And that's why it's important to cast a really wide net and tell your story as loud and as far as it can reach, so that people who hear you and are inspired by that will want to find you and come to you. And that's an important kind of piece, right? You have to be really good at like the marketing, building a brand and awareness so that people, when they hear about you, they can make the connection. I have this thing that's called like the science of connection. It's not magic. Manifestation is not magic. It's science, right? Every time I have a conversation about the things that I want, that person, when they think of me, are going to think about the last conversation we had, right? So if we talk about loving Thai food, right, and you end up at a Thai restaurant, you're going to think, oh yeah, Paul just told me he loves Thai food. Maybe I should bring him a bowl. Or maybe he'll want an invite the next time I pull up to a restaurant. Or maybe I should send him the name of this place if it's good. And then, right? And so like all of these thoughts go through other people's heads, but because you made a genuine connection, so it's no different with fundraising, right? You get to know the people who are making the decisions. Who are they? What's important to them? Is it family? Is it identity? Is it culture? Is it whatever? And does your thing match what is important to them as an individual? Or does your thing match what is important to them in their professional world and setting, right? And so when you're approaching companies, sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's the philanthropic, arm of the organization. Sometimes it's like, I just know the CEO, and that CEO is willing to write me a check, whether it comes from their company or not. Right. And so there's no kind of secret sauce there. It's connection. It's being human, and it's seeing people as more than just dollar signs. And so that's my recommendation to folks is it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're writing grants, you're meeting donors, you're talking to companies. If you can find that through line and make a direct connection between who you are, what you're doing, and who they are and what they're doing, and if there's commonality of purpose, then you can make a really strong case. Sometimes, too, you can make a really great case, and they might say, this is really great, but our money's already tied up. We already have companies that we're investing in or nonprofits that we've already donated to. So, yes, you're right. This was a great alignment. It's not the right time. And so, not being discouraged about that and not, thinking that, oh, I missed my opportunity this one time, now it'll never come again, right? It's building and maintaining that relationship there so that when the time is right, then they'll consider you in that way. And so it's a lot of work, and a lot of people don't want to do that work, or they don't know that that's the work that they have to do. They think, oh, if I just take 1,000 shots in the dark, something's going to hit, something's going to stick. And you can be more intentional about the choices that you make to help everybody see kind of how they connect with you. And so that's the I think the secret there. And it's not that big of a secret because I think it's something anybody can do. But it's hard to get past the imposter syndrome. It's hard to get into a space where you feel like, especially if you come from poverty or you come from not having money, it's hard to sit in a room full of people who can write a $500,000 check and you're like, how do I relate to you? How do I connect with you? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure out how I pay my $100 phone bill. You could pay, you know what I mean? 5,000 of these phone bills and not blink, right? And so that's hard for people. Is sometimes you'll put them in a situation around folks with money and they feel like, oh, I got to switch up. I got to act different. I got to be somebody who I'm not in order to get these people to be interested. And in reality, it's like if they couldn't see you to begin with, they're not the right fit. Go find the person who values you and will see you for who you are. And when you do, the whole nature of the conversation shifts and changes. You actually find that whether money is on the table or not, people are way more willing to help you find what you're looking for because they want to be helpful. They want to be good people, especially if it aligns with what they believe in, you know what I mean? And so you got to allow kind of that process to happen too.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so it sounds to me like it's about believing in your passion, driving forward with your passion relentlessly, and being able to communicate your messaging properly, seek out that connection with others, and find those similarities, and that's going to lead to the success. And It's interesting because I wanted to be an actor when I was younger. I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a comedian, and an inventor and a scientist. And well, not a scientist. I want to be an inventor. I was like, I want to be an actor, a comedian / scientist when I was younger. And then I realized that there's a difference between a scientist and an inventor. And I was like, I want to be an inventor. I want to build things. I have ideas. I want technologies I want to develop. And along the way, I decided to go to business school instead. But my mom was just like, you should go to acting school. You're such a good actor. You should go. But I chose to sacrifice my passion for logic because that's our system, and that feeds back into what we were talking about why we need to change our education system to be able to help give people the paths that they need to be able to do those things. But now I have all the skill sets to I can do acting now. I could run my own shows. I could produce my own skit comedy show. I don't need anything else. So Well, I do need stuff. I need equipment, guys. Nanlite. Who else? What are they? Aperture. They create lights. Aperture and Nanlite. Either one of you guys.
Yo, the full Adobe Creative Suite.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's keep
Sony.
going.
We got Sony on the line. We got Manfrotto. They make things. We got Matthews. They make great stands.
And those new AI apps that do video editing and make it easy, like, yes, them too.
Yeah,
like,
them too. Them too. Ben Rowe, all the people, and DJI, give me things. So this brings me to, you're talking about the imposter syndrome, and like it's hard work. It's hard work to go out and pursue your passion and just keep going relentlessly, and like not doing like 1,000, like knock on 1,000 doors, but like knock on 1,000 doors of people that that you've done your research, and that takes time and effort. And so like how, like, you're an introvert. I sometimes think I'm an introvert. I did my test, the that thing that like tests to see if like you're a Ian.
Like Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, Myers-Briggs. That's what I did. I did the Myers-Briggs, and it said that I'm an extrovert. But I'm like, if I'm just out all the time, like I get energized. I go out, I'm like, oh, I'm hyped up. I go home and I crash. And if I don't have, like, what I love to do is like, I love to have a day where I'm just like chilling at the house, watching TV, playing my instruments, just chilling, having a good time. Like yesterday, I was burnt. I was tired. And I ended up, like, I play a few instruments, and I played all of them, and I juggle pins, I juggle juggling balls, and I juggled all those. And you know what? I slept less last night, but I woke up feeling great. And it's because like, I watched Loki, I watched Goosebumps. Like, I was having a ball. It was great. And so like, I'm curious about like how do you regenerate yourself? How do you get yourself to just keep going and set your own schedule? Be like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and not like just like fall into like a funk of just being like, nothing matters. I can just sleep all day and nothing will matter. How do you on two sides? One, like, how do you create that own structure for yourself? Because I'm trying to figure it out for me. Like, how do I create my structure so that I can achieve all the things I want to achieve and not have to go into a day job? Because I technically don't need a day job right now. I'm surviving, but I want to thrive. I want to make billions and billions of dollars, and I want to impact billions of people, and I want to do all these great things, but I struggle with that imposter syndrome. I struggle with trying to figure out how do I structure my time, and I also don't understand 100% self-care. So like, how do you do it?
That's a great question. If you ask my fiance, I don't do it. No, I think I've worked jobs where I'm giving like 1,000%. I'm every day, every night, nights and weekends, evenings, just like committed to that process, and it's a lot. And it's not super healthy. It's just like me kind of going through it and feeling like I just got to do what I got to do to get through this tough time or this tough challenge or this goal that I set. I'm super ambitious, right? And I think there are periods in life where it's okay to like not have balance. But you also have to recognize that you're going to need periods in your life where you do, right? And so I'm in a groove right now where I like channel my energy in spurts, right? I can take breaks during the day. I don't have to go outside if I don't want to. But I've created opportunities for myself where, my time is valued. I'm making money, and I'm still kind of balancing my personal and professional interests. And so there's that. I think and also like, I also know like I'm in a privileged position to be able to do that. Not everybody's able to do that. I think the keys to figuring it out is to figure out like what is your working style, what do you need to be successful, and then can you create an environment where you can thrive in that. But if folks can't communicate what it is that they want and that they need to be successful, then it's hard to create an environment where you have those things. So there's that. The other piece is like being firm about certain kinds of boundaries, right? Again, I'm not perfect at it, but there are certain things that you can allow or not allow into your life. And if you don't want to work evenings, don't take your work home. It's easier said than done, but like that's what it means. If you want your weekends, don't work a job where, occasionally you'll have to work on. Just don't, say yes to those opportunities because you think, I need the steady paycheck, or I need this, or I need that. If there are certain things that are non-negotiables for your success and for your balance, then like make them non-negotiables. Enforce that, right? Not everybody is able to, but if you have the opportunity to, then seek that out. Like name those things so that everybody understands around you. No, you can't call me after a certain point. Send me a text. I might get it in the morning. Send me an email. I'll read it in the morning. Right? Like those are certain things. Right now in my life, because I'm in such a creative space, I wake up in the mornings, I write. I don't set meetings, before 10 a.m. This like, and if I can help it, like before noon, like I want my mornings back. There's so many years, decades of my life where I did not have my mornings. And now that I'm in a space where I can wake up, go through my routine, I can write, I can kind of get my day sorted, figure out what it is I want to accomplish during the day, who it is I want to talk to or meet with or think about, strategize with myself. I have a friend, his name is D1. He's a hip hop artist who also used to be like a 7th grade math teacher. Now he's a college professor. He's super cool. But he has these like CEO or like board meetings with himself. Right. And so he's like, so I make sure that there's food and I put on my calendar and I like sit down and I am like, okay, I got my snacks, I got my water, I got my agenda. These are the questions I need to ask myself for where I'm at. And he'll spend an hour, 90 minutes or 2 hours kind of figuring that out for his own life. And I thought, oh, that's an incredible practice. I need time in my life where I can do that on a regular basis. So I'm not waiting, 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months to reevaluate where I'm at. I need to be nimble, right? And adapt fairly quickly if I feel like something's really not working for me. So I think that there are those things that are kind of professional boundaries, being able to communicate what you want and what you need, and then doing the work of self-reflection and being self-aware. Those are all kind of important kind of concepts and pieces for establishing balance. I think the pieces around self-care, I think a lot of folks think about self-care as like, oh, I'm going to get like my hair did, my toes, my nails, like spa treatment and like that kind of thing. I'm like, cool if like that's what you do, right? I'm not knocking that. Sometimes self-care is as simple as I'm going to manage my calendar and I stick to it because I have to take breaks. I need to eat lunch. I need to stop working at a certain time, right? Sometimes self-care looks like saying no. No, I can't go out. I don't have the budget to do all of the fun things that all my friends are doing, right? Sometimes it's I need to make a phone call to somebody who understands me, right? And so I need to call that person, and that's a form of self-care. That's like no money, you know what I mean? I think when we understand what it is that we need to recharge, to feel rested, if we need to work out problems or to, kind of take some space so we can process things, those are all kind of forms of self-care as well. If you want to treat yourself to a cookie while you do that, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay. But I think sometimes we get caught up and we think, oh, I got to spend money, or I got to go on a vacation, I got to take a trip, and that's the only way I can do self-care. No, like, self-care can exist in your everyday practice. You can take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour to do self-care. And I don't like to have it wait. It's not a reward. It's something I look to just build into my everyday. And so if I feel like I hit a groove and I'm going, and I'm like, I'm at my computer and now I'm in this 3-hour, like, my energy's up, I feel great, and everything just feels like I'm in that mode. And at the end of that 3 hours, I'm like, yo, I need to stop. Hard stop. Middle of the day, I'm like, I need to walk outside. I need to go get some food. I need to whatever to kind of get back to that space where I feel good, to get back into a flow again. And so for me, that's why I work in spurts now. It's like, I'll set up all my meetings with folks in the middle of the afternoon. Evenings, it's like if there's an event, maybe I'll pop out. But a lot of times I like to, work from 12 to 4, take a quick break, maybe get back to it after 6, and I'll work for a couple hours, but then I'm done by like 8:30, 9. If I am not tired, maybe I'll watch a couple shows. Maybe I'll work till like 1 or 2 in the morning, which is not for everybody, but I'm a creative, so I don't have to be up at like 7 or, you know what I mean, or something to go and be somewhere. And so then, I'll give myself the permission to, like, okay, I have another spurt of energy. I'm going to work a little bit later into the night, but then I'm going to sleep and not have to take a meeting at 8 a.m. or be somewhere at 7 a.m. And so then my day, when I'm coming back around, it's like, great, I can wake up at 8:30 or 9. I can take my time. I can feed myself. I can, you know what I mean? I can write now. I can reflect. I can, kind of get into that day. So when midday comes around, oh, now I'm back in my zone. You know what I mean? But it's figuring out, like, what is your flow? That routine for me, like, it's what it is right now, but it's not always like that. I can change it based on what I have going on in my life. And so, yeah, I think it's understanding what that is, and then communicating that to other folks, and communicating why your time might be set up or established in that way. So folks know, like, you want to meet with me, that 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. block of time is a good time to, like, try to set up a meeting with me. You'll probably get me at my best between 12 to 4. In terms of, like, meeting or being out somewhere and kind of doing that kind of thing. But if you want me at other points in the day, cool. Just, like, don't expect me to have my laptop. I might bring my cell phone, take some notes or whatever. But if you want me, like, laptop, virtual presentations or whatever, it's like 12 to 4. I can probably do something a little bit earlier than that, 10 or 11 a.m., but I'm not going to be on a Zoom virtual setting for like 8 hours, 6 hours. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, like, I'm in the same boat where, like, I don't need to, like, wake up early. Like, I can make my own schedule. I'm not, like, rolling in dough. Like I said, I have enough to survive as long as I maintain frugality. I can't go on, like, trips and, like, do all this stuff. But I'm in this point right now where everything, like, my gigs are all, like, covering, like, enough for me. And so it's like, I want to make money. I want to make mind make money. Like, I really want to see a society where every single person can really pursue what they want. And right now we're not like that. We've got there's so many people in our society that they have to work. They have to work in order to survive. They have to work 9 to 5s, and some of them have to work 2-3 jobs just to survive. And so it's going to be great. This is part of my activism of trying to create create solutions. So, talking solutions. This is the post-interview after the panel discussion. Thank you for either listening or watching, or just, clicking on it and going, I like this, and then scrolling by it. So whatever you did, thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate you so much, Jonathan. Shout out to you all out there in the world. In the next year or so, I'll be releasing a book. So it's about hip hop and values-based leadership. So I'll just plug for that. Like, people can follow me at Paul Willis Hip Hop. All of that kind of tags and links and all that good stuff will be in the description for all of this. So I just appreciate you in this time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Jonathan Polyp Saffer.
I'm Paul Willis.
And this has been Talking Solutions.
Peace.